I almost lost my car and I almost lost my mind. Then the most unexpected people showed me the kind of kindness that left me speechless and in tears. From a careless mistake to standing face to face with Ibuku and Woshika, this is what happens when mercy finds you before judgment does. Welcome back to the TLYM Market podcast. And just as I mentioned earlier in the week, this week we'll be speaking about kindness and I'll be telling you stories. I'm Chooks, and today's story is one of grace, heartbreak, and a kind of kindness that left me speechless, literally on my knees. Let me take you back to December 2021. Earlier that year, in April 2021, I got married to the absolute love of my life. As part of our wedding celebration, my cousin, who also was my boss at the time, gifted us a car. It was all joy and happiness, and we had celebrated it and given God all the glory. Now fast forward to December of that same year, 2021. The car had undergone what I would like to call a divine transformation. Freshly pimped and ready to take my new bride and I on our first Christmas trip together to Delta State. But on 17th December, which was few days to our trip, something happened. So I had visited a client in Lekki Phase 1 where I usually would go for IT consultations once in a while. And I had a friend who happened to live around who just got a car and asked me to come look at it and pick it up for some modifications, because at that time I was actively involved in car pimping, modifications and the likes. So of course, because I couldn't drive two cars, so I had dropped mine at the office where I consult for and dropped my keys with the security, which is in our usual manner, because at the time the office had not closed. So where I parked, I was obstructing. So the idea was when the office is closed and everybody has left, it should help me repark my car back into the compound and keep the keys. So the idea was when I'm done working on my friend's car and I return it, I could easily just pick up my car and head back home. But later that night, while I was home with my wife observing our Friday movie night, that's December 17th, I got a very unusual call. And the call went thus: "Are you Mr. Chukuma?" I said yes. "Did you give anybody permission to drive your car?" And I froze. Turns out the security guy took my car without my permission that night and drove around, and when he was on his way back, he crashed it into a massive gate and pillar. And not just any gate, the gate of Mr. and Mrs. Abiodun and Ibuku Awoshika. Yes, you heard me right, the Awoshikas. This guy ran my car into their gates. And to make matters worse, he nearly took lives. Yes, he nearly took lives. So the exact spot where he ran into is a spot where the mobile policeman who guides the property usually stay at night. And also, I was informed when I got to the scene that the maids of that house at that time was about going out that night to get something. So they were close to the gate. It was the sound from the impact that drove them back inside. So it would have been permit me to use the word, a double. So after I dropped the call, after I had been informed that someone drove my car and crashed it into a property, I had to immediately book an Uber that night, and I was on my way to the island from Abulegba. Now on getting to Lekki Phase 1, the sight of the damage broke me. So the officers had explained that the owner of the property, at that time I didn't know the owners of the property, but they had mentioned that the owners of the property were out and they're back inside, and they had instructed that until I fix the gate, or until the gate is fixed, before I can get my car out of the property. We're talking about a heavy gate and pillar. Trust me, fixing that property looked like I would have to sell that car to be able to fix it. So because it was already very late in the night, myself and my wife had to get a hotel around close by to pass the night. And yes, you guessed right, it was the longest night of my life. In my head, I was rehearsing the apologies. I was trying to calculate how much is cement, how much is stone, how much, it was just a very long night for me. And that was me thinking about how the property was going to be fixed before I even start thinking whether I even have a car to fix by the time I'm done fixing the property. So very early in the morning, before we left the hotel, my wife had mentioned that we should pray. And believe me, I was not in the mood for any prayers. I just wanted to get out there, mess that guy up, and if it happens that I sell my car to fix the property, so be it. I had gotten to that point and I just was angry, so angry. And my wife said, no, let's pray for God's favor. And yeah, reluctantly I listened to her and we prayed before stepping out of the hotel. So on getting to the property at about 7 a.m., Mr. Abiodun came out of the house and met us there. So he said, thank God no lives were lost. Just fix up the gates and you can leave with your car. I nodded, and trust me, I didn't know when tears dropped down my face. It was so devastating looking at the damage. At night I wasn't really seeing the damage, but when the day was bright, it was very obvious, and it was a very devastating sight to look at. So in that state, I said, okay, let them call maybe a bricklayer, a welder, and all that, because I didn't really know artisans around there. And the entire idea was, let them come around, let me know what it costs, and let me know what next to do. So Mr. Abiodun had asked us what really happened, how did the car get into this guy's hand, and while I was explaining everything that happened, Mrs. Ibukun walked out of the compound and met us there. And that was when it dawned on me that, I'm actually at the property of the Awoshikas. I really did not know Mr. Abiodun by face, but of course I knew Mrs. Ibukun. And when she walked out, imagine being starstruck at the same time devastated. It was a whole lot of mixed feelings, but at that time, I was thinking more of what was ongoing than the starstruck side of me, So I had to hold it all together. Then at that moment, there came a twist that I can never forget, and I haven't forgotten up to this moment. So the Awoshikas went inside to have a conversation, and when they had come out, Mr. Abiodun said something that struck me. He said, you know what? Don't worry about the property, don't worry about the gates. Get a towing van to help you tow the vehicle. We'll fix the damage. You can go. That was kindness I didn't pray for. They could have demanded full payment, or even a lawsuit, or worse. But they chose mercy. Let me even shock you. When the towing van came, he had charged 60,000 naira to tow the vehicle from there to Ikeja, where my cousin had directed me to take the vehicle to. And guess what? Mr. Abiodun requested for my account number and sent me 60,000 naira with extra to cater for towing the vehicle. This was someone whose property has just been destroyed with my car. So my wife and I rode quietly with the towing van, and while we were in the towing van, I was still trying to understand what has just happened. Yes, the car eventually cost a lot to fix, but the act of compassion from total strangers, I carry it with me to this day. And the guy who wrecked the car, well, we let him go. Of course, Luke chapter 7 verse 47 says, "He who has been forgiven much loves much." So here is something I want you to reflect on. Kindness doesn't always come from familiar faces. Sometimes it walks out of a house you never planned to visit and it says, "Go in peace." You may not always deserve it, but when it finds you, receive it with humility. And if God uses you to show that kind of kindness to somebody, don't hesitate, because that might be their prayer you didn't hear, but God did. Until next time, be bold, be true, because your life is the ultimate brand. God bless you.